Hello and good evening. This is Adrian again, and tonight is the second quantum switch in action. It was actually quite fun to do the one last night and to get more practical and help people to understand. And the feedback has been very good. Thank you so much for the feedback that I have received. And if there are any questions, always, you're most welcome to ask. And I'm always available to help and explain so that people can understand better. What I do usually with these quantum switch in action process is if you look at the concept of the work that the quantum switch work, then you'll see there's like somebody explained it to me like this. He said you can go 1 inch deep and 6 inches wide, and you will have very little impact, or you can go 1 inch wide and 3 feet deep. So that is what we try to do when we go into more detail in more advanced kind of classes and lectures and training for quantum switch stuff. So what I'm trying to do now is just to go 6 inch wide and 1 inch deep, so that not to get too technical and too carried away with all the necessary technical stuff that needs to happen as well. So the idea is to give a working knowledge of what's going on, and to some people really do benefit quite a lot from just understanding and gaining a better understanding of the work and how it can actually help them. So tonight, the idea is to talk about awakening. Now, awakening is a very interesting thing. You hear this all over the place. Everybody's talking about an awakening, and it's very, very complicated to understand if you listen to all the different definitions of awakening. And tonight I'm going to do a short bit just to give you an idea of what it looks like from the perspective of the quantum switch. There are many different kind of explanations, perspectives, whatever. This is one. I'm not saying this is the only one. This is one of them, and maybe it can help and give some assistance in the understanding. So let me share the screen quickly here. There we go. All right, so here we go. How awakening works. Let me do this rather and do it as a presentation. There you go. I think that'll work a bit better. It's not so messy. Okay, how awakening works. Quantum switch training session. Okay, so if we are going to talk about awakening, we have to start with the first principle, and that's consciousness. We really can take a couple of steps back into the energy as a first principle, but we don't need to go that deep tonight. We can just start with consciousness. Consciousness, really, if you want to have a very simple and basic explanation, is a field of energy that holds all possibilities in potential. It's like a big dam. Imagine a big dam, and there's no wind, nothing happens on this dam. It's just a dam of very quiet, mirror-like water, and you go and you throw a stone into the water, and then there's a ripple. Now, we are human beings. Through our thought and thinking, what we do is we make the ripple in the water, and then the consciousness becomes activated. Okay, so I don't want to go too deep in this, but that's basically the idea. Consciousness is this field of energy that holds everything in potential, and our human mind actually directs that field into a behavioral state. If you see an event, we can use the thing of the bus again, and there's no connection with the bus. There's no emotion. There's no thought process that goes. It just goes there, and nothing happens. Then the potential is sitting there. But then if you have a nasty memory about something that happens and it causes emotion, then the emotion makes a ripple on this field, the sea of consciousness. And then it brings about emotion, and then the whole thing starts changing, and your thoughts, emotion, and behavior is expressions of consciousness. Okay, so our life experience is an expression of consciousness. Okay, and that's important to understand. Our life experience, the way we experience life, is an expression of consciousness. So consciousness is this field of potential, and Okay, there's a spelling there, but don't worry about it. The life experience is an expression of consciousness. So consciousness is a field, and the way we experience life is an expression of that consciousness. Okay, our limited awareness of the whole is our bigger problem. We in terms of an awakening kind of idea, is as human beings, our really our experience and our awareness of the whole is limited and very small. Let me use an example. Imagine you walk onto a football stadium or a rugby stadium or a sports stadium, and all the lights are off. This is in the middle of the night. You walk and you walk onto this field with a torch, and it's a dark night. There's no moon or no stars, whatever, and you go and all you can see is where the torch goes. Where the torch shines, that's your awareness. That's all you can see. And then somebody goes and switches on all the main lights, and suddenly the whole place is flooded with light, and you can see the entire stadium and up into the air above the stadium. That is basically, in a very crude manner, how an awakening works. Okay, so where you go from a limited awareness to a massively expanded awareness, and it's called an awakening because it can be quite traumatic for people. It's a positive traumatic experience for many people, and any traumatic experience, whether positive or negative, if it's very big and overwhelming, can be classed as a trauma. All right. So as you see, the sentence there says an awakening and an expansion of awareness. The next line there says expansion in the ability to feel. That is our problem as humans, as we are programmed not to feel. And that is quite true. As I said last night as well, feeling is a kind of thing that, you're not encouraged to do too much of. And you say, and if I can use a very crude example again, people say women are the emotional ones, and men are not supposed to be emotional, and you're not allowed to cry, and you're not allowed to feel anything, and you mustn't feel joy or whatever. This is what it is. I remember very vividly my dear mother explaining to us that we were laughing, like we were having a lot of fun and laughing, and she would come and say, don't laugh so much because you're all going to cry. And I'm sure some of you have had that same experience. So you were told not to experience too much, and with too much abandon. You have to reserve your experiences and not be too emotional. In other words, don't express your emotions. So what we do as humans, what we do is we suppress those emotions, and we refuse to feel them, and we bury them, and that's where disease comes from. We don't express. And of course, there's also a way of over-expressing. When we go, too much, that's we become too emo, and that can sometimes be a problem for us. I know it's in my case. I'm a low reactor, so I don't show a lot of emotion. That's just what it is. That's how it is for me. Unless I'm on fire, with what I'm doing, and I really get excited, and when I go into my excitement of this kind of work and so on, and doing music and even playing golf or skiing or whatever, that kind of thing, like energizes your excitement, and then it brings about this emotion of joy and whatever, and it can be quite scary as well if you ski, and you go out of control. But I hope you get the picture. So when we have this awakening experience, we become aware of all the levels of consciousness, and I'll give you a graphic example now. So, but this is just an idea, just give you a sentence to understand something. The awareness of all the levels of consciousness. So the consciousness in many different levels, and you'll see it now. Okay. When you expand your consciousness, it's not all butterfly smiles and fluffy clouds where people think, now you start living in joy and in bliss and everything is just awesome and wow and kind of thing. That's not awakening. Okay, that's pretending. And when you awaken, you can feel all of it. You can see there in the words, all of it. Okay, and it doesn't scare you so much. Not supposed to scare you so much. What does that mean? Is when you have an awakening experience, you begin to experience the highest of highs and the lowest of lows, and you're actually experiencing the whole of it, all of it. And sometimes you can choose what to experience, of how you are going to experience it. As you grow and mature, you understand how things work, and many times the emotional reaction will change for you, where you maybe will not have such a extreme emotional reaction to whatever is going on. Okay, so when you experience all of it, you can experience sorrow and anger and joy and peace, and all those levels of consciousness you can experience. And you experience the emotion of that. Remember, as I said, something that is experienced and emotional experience actually sits in your memory, and it stays there, right, for much longer, and with more vigor. Okay, it gains more vitality, right? So what is interesting to see when people have an awakening experience is they move from the head to the heart-based living. If you stay and you really go for this, and you do you walk the course, and you keep on the road, then you will see that you can choose whether you're going to work from your head or from your heart, and you can balance it. Sometimes you need more head work, and sometimes you need more heart work. And as you grow in your spiritual intelligence, that's the word really. As you grow in that, then you see that you can actually catch a thought and say, okay, fine, this thought is actually causing an emotion that I don't want. I don't want that emotion. So then you can regulate that and change it. You can transmute the energies, and that's something you learn as the time goes on, of how to do these amazing things. Okay, so why do we need an awakening? Why do we need an awakening? In society, what we do is we get roles to play, okay? And the roles we play become our life, and it becomes who we are, and becomes, just that is what we are. Those are the roles we play. That's the game we play. That's how we conduct ourselves in life, and we lose our essence. When you're born, you basically have you're basically essence. Okay, so there's no programming, and then by the time you're 7, then the programming has kicked in. The essence of who you are really gets suppressed, and that's the way society works. Okay, so what we do then is we forget who we are, so that we can fit in with who we are supposed to be. And that is very well known, that that's the human condition, or the human dilemma, is that we really leave everything of our essence behind, and we put ourselves into a position where we basically just do the roles that we're supposed to play, so that we can fit in with our society, and so that we can belong to the society. If you think of more, even today, certain closed societies, if you don't belong, you'll starve. In ancient times, if you don't belong to a society, and the society doesn't like you there, you break their rules, they will remove you from the place, and you'll starve to death, because nobody else is going to look after you, and nobody else is going to help you, and you will be the black sheep kind of person, and there you go. You're out of there, and you will suffer. Humanity has 3 requirements, and our 3 biggest fears is the fear of security, fear of safety, and fear of certainty. Those are the human needs, really. We want to be secure, and we want to be safe, and we want to be certain. We don't want to mess around too much with with those kind of things. Even if the certainty is not the most ideal life, but at least you're certain. You know what you got, and you know what works, and you know how the thing runs. Okay, so there's a song called the Hotel California. Song called Hotel California. My goodness, I forgot about now. And you know how the thing gets stuck on your tongue, or just behind it anyway. Programmed to receive, but you can never leave. That's a sentence from that song from Hotel California. You have really we are programmed to receive more requirements and so on, but we can never leave. You can't really step out and say, I'm finished with this, I'm going to go my own way. Of course, now it's easier. These days it's easier. But if you are in certain societies where you can't move around and so on, then it's still very much the going thing. And in certain families, if the family has a lot of hold on you, sometimes through a vocation of or a job or a profession or whatever, and money, of course, all those things can place holds on you, and it can be almost like a prison for some people, where it's a golden cage or whatever, but it's still a cage. Okay, so I'm not criticizing it. Just for some people, that's how it works, and for others, they don't want that, and they want something different for themselves, and that's how life works. Okay, so we want security, safety, and certainty, and that's why we will do whatever we can, and we will adjust our behavior so that we can fit in and stay there. But then something happens that makes all of this kind of impossible, or makes it so undesirable that the pain is so much that you have to leave, because what you need to leave is what you need to do is to go through this period of time. I'll go to that now. So the question is, have you ever wondered, what is this awakening that people talk about? So that is as I've said before, that's the expansion of your consciousness, your awareness, a massive expansion. It's usually, I have never seen that it's like a very gradual unfolding. It's usually like this massive thing that poof, suddenly hits you, and your life is never the same again. Okay. Then another question people ask is, how long does it take? Okay. Now, I don't know, but sometimes people say to you, it can be instantaneous, and I don't think it's ever instantaneous. The actual event can be a very rapid unfolding thing, but usually it's a long time coming, that kind of thing, where you ask questions and you wonder, and you consider. Sometimes you don't really think you're going to make a lot of move very suddenly, and you don't. I know one of the questions people ask is, how can I start this on purpose? And I've never seen someone start an awakening process on purpose. I've not seen that people do this, because it is not something that I have never had anybody come to a workshop or to work with me and say, I need to transform. Can you help me to transform? You don't get that. You have people that really have an unbelievable amount of problems, and there's this one thing called a crisis, this dark night of the soul, that they really can't do any. They have to. Now I have to make a change. It becomes an imperative. It becomes a requirement that you cannot do without any longer. That is when you get to that point of awakening, and you'll see there's a process usually that leads you to that point, where this transformation is required, and the awakening is absolutely sitting there waiting for you to happen, because you've come to the end of your tether, in a sense, or the end of your awareness, and you know there's something better, there's something bigger, there's something more, and you want that. Okay, that is that point. Okay, and then another question people ask is also, I've heard people say, I was in my third week of awakening. I don't think you can. Honestly, don't think you can quantify it like that. It doesn't work like that. It's not. It's like they give you a roster and say, okay, you'll be this awake by then and this awake by then, because an awakening happens when you are ready, not on a timetable. Okay, so the universe is an amazing thing, an amazing place, and consciousness itself is aware of itself. So that's 3 feet deep stuff. So we're not going to go there, but. Consciousness itself will not expose you to stuff that will hurt you. That's not the point of your life. You will become aware. It's like the saying that when the student is ready, the teacher comes. Was also when the teacher is ready, the students come, and that happens. And there's also a saying that says that the thing that you've been looking for is also looking for you. All those things are really those are principles that awakening is filtered through. Awakening runs around with this kind of this awareness building, and it's quite amazing. Now, sometimes we resist the idea because we've got some certainty, or we've got some comfort, and we've got some things are fine. We okay, maybe not the best, but it's okay, and there is a calling for us to step up, but we don't want to, so we kind of resist. It is very difficult to know. I don't want to, it's going to hurt, kind of thing, and I don't want to do this, and I'm comfortable, and you read a book, and then it's a very lovely book, and then but you go back, and I've seen it happen so many times, where people actually go through some awakening experience, and then they turn around and walk back and say, no, it's too much, I can't do this, and that happens a lot. So there's two processes that I put down here: as the breeze, the wind, the storm, and the tornado. That is how the universe gets your attention. A soft breeze, and then a wind, and then you get a bit of a storm, and then you could get a tornado. Like, hey, I need your attention. Pay attention now. You need to listen to me. And then the other one is a feather, a pebble, a rock, a bus, or a train. Those what's going to hit you. And that's the way that you need to. Sometimes that's what it takes to rip you out of your coma, really, out of your collective coma, and that happens to so many people. The programming is so strong that they never break free of that, and you need the universe to step into that. All right. Then you have a thing called the dark night of the soul, which we're not going to talk about now much, because the dark night of the soul is an experience that really brings on a crisis of identity, of a crisis or existential crisis in your life, where you have to make a difference and you may have to make a change. Okay, and it is not a pleasant experience. The dark night of soul can be very unpleasant and very, very difficult to go through, but we all go through them, and sometimes you have multiples of them. I've had many, and as you go through them, you begin to realize that this too shall pass, and it will pass. And the thing is to minimize your resistance. Don't resist too much. Don't try and force it to say, it must be different. No, this must be different. It must be a different situation, because that makes your dark night of the soul even darker and way more difficult to navigate. Right? So here is a shaded version of the map of consciousness. I'm going to explain to you now how awakening works. Okay, what happens with such an awakening. So here is a map of consciousness. This is a legit copy. I've actually bought it. It is registered here with somewhere here. I've got it. So it's a legit copy. So I'm not copywriting, freaking it out, or whatever. So if you look at the power versus force, this is one of the most amazing books. If you want to really accelerate your own growth in consciousness, this is one book you need to read. Power versus Force by Richard Hawkins. That is one life-changing book. That really is one of the catalyst books in my life. So, according to this map, and if you look nicely, you'll see, you have the way we view God, or the divine, or whatever word you want to use, and the way we look at life. And then the level is here. You'll see later what that means. And the scale is a scale that they worked out. The emotions, what are the emotions that you experience, and then the process, what they call is the kind of life processes that you go through at the different levels of consciousness. These are all different levels of consciousness. Faintly you can see there, but this map is basically just an explanation. The first one that we really see is when the unshaded area. This is what most people on Earth, we are living in this area of consciousness. We don't pay attention much, or we're not aware of the rest of it. So we live between anger, basically pride. Anger, pride, desire, fear, grief, apathy, guilt, and shame. That's where most of us live. Okay, and those are life diminishing. Life diminishing, as you can see, it's weak in its force. It's life diminishing. It sucks the power out of you. And sometimes if someone is sitting here at a level of shame, and they get to, to get some kind of revenge on someone, that's actually lifts them up to a higher level of consciousness, but it's still very low. So someone who's very guilty or suffering shame and is humiliated and living in despair and regret, you can just hear by the words how it sucks out the energy, and it like pushes you down. And the way we see life is, we see life as miserable, life is evil, hopeless, tragic, frightening, disappointing, and all those. Just listen to the words and feel the words, and you can understand, why is this so life diminishing. And also the view of the divine is also very interesting to look at there. I don't want to talk about that too much, because the idea is not to be controversial, but the idea is to say, okay, these are our awareness. And this is what we do. In the level of anger, we become aggressive. In the level of desire, we become enslaved. In the level of fear, we withdraw. And the level of grief, we become despondent. And we live in regret. Can you hear the words? Can you feel the words? In the level of apathy, we live in despair, and we abdicate. We just give over all our power and say, okay, just take it. And in the level of guilt, we live in blame and destruction. It's like, it's not that we destroy, but we become destroyed in the guilt. Okay, and then shame, which is the lowest level of consciousness, where you live in humiliation and elimination. And you can imagine what the elimination means to many people. Okay, so those are the lowest levels of consciousness, and that's where 80% of the population lives in the world. It might sound very, very hectic, but that is actually what is happening. So when you then get to a point in your life where something changes, okay, and then you get to a place where you need to move forward, and you get this calling on your life, or you go to the dark night of the soul, or you have a crisis of some kind, you can move into these middle bands, which is really pride. And pride is still life diminishing, because it is filled with scorn and inflation and stuff. And pride is, the whole world is sitting on the highest peak on the heap of dung is the pride heap. And you get I'm the main chicken in the coop, or I am the main this or whatever, and everybody is subservient to me. That is what we sit with here. All right, and then we get to this amazing level called courage. And courage is something that we get. You know the word encouragement, or you encourage people, you give them courage. And usually that in many places, that is where someone believes in you. Someone shows a belief in you. Someone shows that they believe in you and will give you a chance, and pulls you out of shame and guilt, and gives you a break. Okay, that's an energetic break, consciousness break, and says, actually you can do this. You go to maybe a massive workshop, and something triggers in you and encourages you to take the next step that will lift you and help you move up the level of consciousness into higher levels. I'm not going to go too heavy into that, because that's like a whole course. All right, so from the lowest levels of consciousness, going through the middle is the where you move from the indifferent kind of demanding pride bits, and then you switch over to courage, and where life becomes feasible, and you become you have an emotional affirmation. Say, I'm good enough. I'm good enough. Remember those words. I'm good enough. Okay. And then you become empowered to make the next step. Empowerment to make the next step. It's not empowerment to look down on other people, or the empowerment to control everybody. It's about empowerment to take the next step. All right. So now when you have this awakening experience, then this happens. All right. Suddenly you're aware of everything, and you're aware of the consciousness levels of neutrality, willingness, acceptance, reason, love, joy, and peace. And at the very highest level, you get to a level of enlightenment where you get into pure consciousness. And we can't even talk about that because very few people even get there. Okay, that's where the universe disappears, and you just you realize who you are as an energetic being, and it's quite awesome to get there. You can't live there. There are very few people who live there, but you can have glimpses of that. All right. So now, in contrast with what we've had just before, when we went through the lower levels of consciousness, if you go to the higher levels of consciousness, you start talking about willingness, acceptance, reason, love, joy, and peace. Listen to the energy in those words. Willingness, acceptance, reason, love, joy, and peace, and enlightenment. And then you get to an amazing year on the process side. You'll see there's transcendence, abstraction, revelation, transfiguration, illumination, and pure consciousness. And those are very interesting and very powerful experiences to have. Okay, and experience of bliss, serenity, and reverence. Have you ever been in a nature setup where you I remember going onto a mountain once in Switzerland where we were skiing, and as you get to the top of this mountain, you look over this valley, and it's like as far as you can see are these peaks. It's all white with snow, but it's absolutely beautiful to see, and that's where you get into this reverence for nature and this wow, amazing stuff. This is where the time disappears. Okay, and it means something next is like serenity. If you serene, you so calm, and nothing can phase you. Okay, and that's where you experience a real joy when you're in serenity, and life is complete. When life is complete, then there is no reason to be angry or grievous or live in apathy or guilt. Okay, so this is what it means to have an awakening, because you become aware of all of this. Okay, so you can actually live in all of these areas, and in many cases, when you start off, it can be quite difficult to negotiate this thing, but as you go more and more and more through down this path, the expression of consciousness through you is like, it really empowers you and it makes it possible for you to change your default setting. And the default setting somewhere in here is the default setting where people are, and I'll explain to you on the process of transformation, how that impacts our life. Because when you are born, your default setting is somewhere around here. Okay, somewhere one of these levels will be your default level, and from there you will live your life and do and experience life from that level. And of course, then the idea is to go to a higher level all the time, so that you can change your default and your life becomes more a life enhancing experience than a life diminishing experience. Okay, so, and usually there's balance, and sometimes you can be in one area of your life higher level and the other area of your life on a lower level. So, and then it is a quite a thing to be going through. So okay, so in the end, this is the map that you will get to learn and to understand, to work. Here at the back, here behind me, that is part of the quantum switch that I use when we do workshops and things to take people on this experience. Because remember, as I said in the beginning, we are energy, and these things are energy. This is energy frequencies of joy and enlightenment, love and reason. These are actually energies that you can experience. I've taken a lot of people on this journey up this up this ladder, and it was quite life-changing for basically everybody. So the one or two people just didn't want to do it, and it really like freaked them out. But that's not the idea. The idea is for him to experience this in an amazing way. So probably you're more confused now than anything else. But the idea is to give you a quick look at what it means to have this awakening and to have this expansion of consciousness, where you used to live at the very lower levels of consciousness, or a person has lived on the lower levels of consciousness, and then the universe expands and they become aware. My goodness, all of these other things are there, and your life changes, and your experience of life changes. Where you used to have maybe this extremely hectic experiences, up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down all the time. Then if you, as you get to higher levels of consciousness, it will still be up and down, but it's not going to be so hectic. It may be a little bit of a wave, and doesn't mean that you're going to never experience grief or whatever, but you will. But then you will know that there's something a bit higher as well, and you can navigate, and you can change, and you can transmute, and so on. Those are all concepts that comes in when you start doing this work with yourself, and it can be difficult. I'm not lying. No, it is difficult if you have to resist and you have to fight the situation. It becomes really difficult for you. Okay, so it's also not a good idea just to try and do it alone, because it is. If you try and do it alone, it becomes so much more difficult, and it takes so much longer because all your blind spots remain blind. Okay, because when we go into higher consciousness, all your lower consciousness goes blind. Okay, so then you can't see them, and suddenly you see, but something is like holding you back, something is pulling you down, and you don't see the blind spots. Okay, and that's where you need a coach or a mentor or somebody to help you to navigate those, and to see, okay, fine, this is me, and that's it. And the big thing is not to have too much resistance to say, but I know what I'm doing, because even at the higher levels, I've got blind spot hectically stuff, So, but because we're human beings, and we have all this consciousness around us, and the environment and everything else is talking to us, and every cell in your body is monitoring the environment all the time, and it's all fear-based. Especially at the moment, there's a lot of fear and desperation going on in the world, and it is dangerous times, and you have to look after yourself. And one of the most important things to look after yourself is to really make sure that you stay calm and you stay in peace with yourself, so that you can have an experience of peace in the world and take your power into the world. It's not about fighting. It's not about, making trouble with anybody, because it's not going to work. It's not going to help you at all. It's not going to help you. What you need to do is become the light in the world. And that's what we really are called to do at this time, to become those people who can make a positive difference in the world and support people who are suffering, and sometimes just hold space. You don't have to go and do stuff for them all the time. Sometimes you just need to hold space, and you need to understand how to do this, okay, so that we can make life a bit better for all of us, to be honest. Of course, it's going to be, there is no such thing as an ideal life. There is no such thing. There's no such thing as a life without problems. There isn't one. Okay, problems are opportunities just to find solutions. And if the higher your level of consciousness that you are living at, the easier you will find to create a positive and life-affirming alternatives to what is. Okay, so if you're down stuck in fear and anger and humiliation and stuff, all you're going to build is castles around yourself, and you're going to start and try and protect yourself, because you're under attack all the time. When you go into higher levels of consciousness, you'll realize that fear loses its power very quickly when you give it some love, actually. All right, so that's it for this one, and I thank you for hanging in there. I don't know how long it is yet, but that's how long it's going to be. So many blessings, and thank you for your time. Tomorrow night we will be back with another episode of something interesting and something amazing that can help you to really have a life worth living, and to really create a life that's a blessing to yourself and to everybody else. And one of our missions really is to create a life where we can create a life that works for everybody who is interested in creating a better life. Right? So, and that you do from higher levels of consciousness. Many thank you and many blessings. Take it easy. Sleep well.